Don't go to your wedding. I looked at my reflection in the bridal boutique fitting room mirror and couldn't suppress a smile. The snow-white dress fit perfectly, as if tailored just for me. One more week, and I'd become the wife of the best man in the world. Christopher. 3 years together, and every single day he found a way to show how much he loved me. Morning flowers, random notes tucked into my coat pocket, surprise gifts for no reason. This kind of thing only happens in books, but I got lucky. This was my reality. "Emily!" came Victoria's delighted shriek, and a second later my best friend burst into the fitting room like a tiny hurricane. "You look absolutely cosmic. Christopher's going to faint when he sees you in that dress." I laughed. "Just don't tell me you're actually planning to show him photos before the wedding. We agreed, no spoilers." "Relax, I'm not that irresponsible of a maid of honor." Victoria plopped into an armchair and started rummaging in her enormous bag. "I've got something for you. Consider it your first bridal shower gift." She pulled out an elegant envelope made of thick paper with ornate embossing. "What is this?" I turned the envelope over in my hands. "Please don't tell me you hired a stripper." "I asked for none of that tacky stuff." "Better?" Victoria bounced with impatience. "Open it." Inside was a gift certificate styled like an ancient scroll, Destiny's Veil. "Unlock the secrets of your future." I looked up at my friend. "Seriously? A fortune teller? Not just any fortune teller." Victoria jumped up and started pacing the fitting room. "It's Evelyn Carter. She's practically a legend. She's booked solid 6 months out, but I got lucky. Someone cancelled their appointment for today." "Can you believe it? It's clearly fate." I snorted skeptically. "Vic, you know how I feel about this stuff. Tarot cards, fortune-telling, predictions, it's all just entertainment for people who can't make their own decisions." "Oh, come on." Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "No one's saying you have to believe it 100%, but you know I never give useless gifts. I have a gut feeling about these things. Remember how I introduced you to Christopher?" I couldn't help but smile. 3 years ago, Victoria had practically dragged me to her company's holiday party, insisting I had to be there. That's where I met Christopher. He was the new CFO, tall, in a perfectly tailored suit with surprisingly kind eyes and a disarming smile. We talked all evening, and the next day he called and asked me out. All right, I raised my hands in surrender. "Your intuition does mean something. When's the appointment?" "In 2 hours." Victoria beamed. "We'll just have time to pick up the dress and get there. She's downtown, not far from your office." The rest of the time flew by. We packed the dress, dashed into our favorite coffee shop for lattes and pastries, and soon stood before an old mansion with a dark blue sign, Destiny's Veil. "Looks respectable," I admitted, studying the stained glass windows and wrought iron railings. "At least it doesn't look like a scam artist's den." Inside, we were met by pleasant coolness and the scent of herbs. No tacky gypsy vibes, strict European style, muted lighting, comfortable armchairs in the waiting area, old engravings with astrological symbols, and Renaissance art reproductions hung on the walls. An administrator, a young woman in a tailored suit, led me to the office. Victoria stayed outside, winking goodbye. Evelyn Carter was nothing like I'd pictured a fortune teller. No colourful shawls or jangling bracelets. An elegant middle-aged woman in a grey pantsuit with a neat haircut. Only her eyes were unusual, light grey, as if veiled in mist. "Please sit, Emily," She gestured to a chair opposite a massive dark wood desk. "The wedding is in a week, if I'm not mistaken." I blinked in surprise. "Did Victoria tell you?" "No." A slight smile touched her lips. "It's visible in your aura. You're practically glowing from within." And she tilted her head slightly, studying me with a strange expression. "You smell like a bridal salon. That very distinct scent of lace and silk." I laughed involuntarily. The explanation was so simple and logical that my wariness eased slightly. The session began conventionally enough. Evelyn laid out cards, jotted things down in a notebook, occasionally asked simple everyday questions, nothing mystical. She asked about my job. I'm a manager at a large corporation. About my parents. They live in another city, flying in for the wedding. About Christopher. We met at a company party. We've been engaged for 6 months. Then something changed. Her gaze became sharp, piercing. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Don't go to the engagement dinner tomorrow." "Excuse me." I wasn't sure I'd heard correctly. "What engagement dinner?" "We're already engaged." "The formal dinner with the groom's parents." She spoke slowly, enunciating each word clearly. "Tomorrow evening. Don't go there." I went cold. Indeed, tomorrow we were supposed to have a family dinner with Christopher's parents, a formal meet-up before the wedding, but I hadn't told anyone about that, not even Victoria. "You'd better check your fiancé's garage," she continued in that same strange voice, "before it's too late." "The garage?" I gave a nervous laugh. "Why? What could possibly be there?" But Evelyn Carter said nothing more. She silently gathered the cards, carefully placed them in a box, and stood up. "The session is over. Remember the garage." I stayed silent the whole way home while Victoria excitedly discussed how mysterious Evelyn was and how amazing it all was. Her words about the garage echoed in my head. What nonsense. Christopher did have a garage, a small unit in a multi-level parking structure near his place. I'd been there a couple of times when he changed the oil in my car. A perfectly ordinary garage. Tools, spare parts, old tires. So why did just thinking about it send shivers down my spine? That evening, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, checked my phone, turned the nightlight on and off. Rain drummed against the window pane outside, each drop seeming unnaturally loud in the night's silence. Christopher texted that he was working late. Usual before vacation, gotta close all projects. He was always so responsible. "Love you, baby. Tomorrow will be a special evening." His last message glowed on my phone screen. I reread it 10 times, trying to understand why it evoked such a strange feeling. Ordinary words, an ordinary "love you." Why did they suddenly seem different? Closing my eyes, I remembered how we met. That company party was utterly ordinary. Cheesy music, standard appetizers, awkward colleague dancing. I was standing by the bar, wishing I could leave when he approached. Tall, in a navy suit, with barely there stubble. Not usually my type, but there was something about him. Maybe his gaze, attentive, studying, as if he knew something important about me. "Have we met before?" he'd asked then. A cliched pickup line, but it sounded sincere coming from him. I'd said no, definitely not. I'd remember someone like him. He smiled. "I feel like I've seen you somewhere, maybe in a dream." Romantic, beautiful, perfect. Too perfect. I sat bolt upright in bed. What stupid thoughts were filling my head? 3 years together, 6 months engaged, and suddenly I was doubting because of some fortune teller's words? No, it was just pre-wedding jitters, nerves, exhaustion from planning. My phone pinged softly, a message from Victoria. "Can't sleep, Me neither. Still thinking about the fortune teller. That garage thing is creepy. I frowned. Of course, Victoria couldn't help winding herself up and dragging me along. I typed a reply. Go to sleep. It's all nonsense. Then paused. But admit it, it's weird she knew about tomorrow's dinner. You didn't tell anyone, did you? My fingers froze over the keyboard. Wait, how did she know? I hadn't even told Victoria, not because it was a secret, just no occasion. A regular family dinner, nothing special. Christopher's parents were flying in early, wanting to spend more time with us before the wedding. Stop. Flying in? I jumped out of bed and went to the window. The rain intensified, long streams distorting the streetlight glow. Something nagged at me. A thought hovered at the edge of my consciousness. Exactly. A week ago, Christopher had said his parents were delayed. Some paperwork issues. They wouldn't arrive until right before the wedding. So why the family dinner tomorrow? I grabbed my phone, opened the chat with my future mother-in-law. Her last message was 3 days ago. Sweetheart, so sorry. Dad and I can only fly in Friday evening, just in time for the wedding. These bureaucrats have gone mad with their paperwork requirements. My heart hammered in my throat. If his parents weren't coming, who was tomorrow's dinner with? Call me, came a new message from Victoria. A second later, my phone vibrated. I did some digging online. Victoria babbled without even a hello. Found reviews about that fortune teller. Know the creepiest part? Everyone writes that her predictions come true. Absolutely everyone. Especially warnings about danger. Vic, I swallowed the lump in my throat. There's something else. Something's wrong with this dinner. I told her about the text from his mom. Victoria was silent for nearly a minute, a record for her. Okay, she finally said, I'm calling a cab right now. I'm coming to you. Why? Because we're going to check that damn garage. Now? I looked at the clock, almost midnight. Are you crazy? How do we even get in? You don't have keys. You do. Victoria's voice held steely certainty. Christopher gave you a spare set in case you needed to get the car. Right. The keychain lay forgotten in my dresser drawer. Christopher had left them for emergencies, though I'd never used them. Vic, this is insane. I shook my head, though she couldn't see it. Are we seriously going to break into my fiancé's garage in the middle of the night like thieves? No, Victoria cut in. We're going to find out why your fiancé is lying about tomorrow's dinner and why a fortune teller who's never wrong says you can't go. I was silent. Fragments of thought swirled. Christopher's strange look when we first met, his perfect behavior all these years, the chance encounters that felt so natural, too natural. Okay, I exhaled. Come over. But this is the last crazy thing before the wedding, got it? Of course, Victoria chuckled. Cab will be here in 15. Dress warm and bring a flashlight. My hands trembled treacherously as I got ready. A stupid thought circled. What if there really is something there? Something so important it could change my whole life. I looked in the mirror. A pale girl with messy hair and frightened eyes stared back. Nothing like the happy bride trying on her wedding dress that morning. Just check and put it to rest, I told my reflection. There's nothing there. There can't be. My phone vibrated. A message from Christopher. Still awake thinking of you. Tomorrow will be a special evening. You have no idea how long I've waited for this. A chill ran down my spine. Those simple words suddenly felt ominous. The rain had eased slightly when Victoria and I got out of the cab near the multi-level parking structure. 5 stories of grey concrete rose into the night sky like an unwelcoming fortress. A few dim security lights cast eerie shadows on the wet asphalt. At this hour it was deserted. Only the glow of a TV screen came from the guard booth. "How do we get past security?" Victoria whispered, glancing around nervously. I pulled out my access card. Officially, I was authorized to be here. Christopher had added me to the owner list when he gave me the keys. "Thoughtful of him," Victoria muttered, but her tone was odd. The guard didn't even look up from his TV as we passed, just waved vaguely at my good evening. An old action movie played on the screen. Muffled gunshots echoed from the booth. Christopher's garage was on the 3rd floor. Our footsteps echoed loudly on the concrete stairs in the empty space. Victoria held my hand tightly. Her palm was damp with nerves. Unit 317. I stopped in front of a heavy metal door. "You know, maybe this really isn't a good idea. Feels wrong." Victoria turned me to face her. "Your fiancé lied about his parents. The fortune teller warned of danger. What else has to happen before you start asking questions?" She was right. I pulled out the keys. My hands shook slightly. The lock clicked unexpectedly loud, the sound echoing through the level. Clunk. We froze, listening, but only the distant sound of rain broke the silence. Inside the garage it was dark and smelled of motor oil. I turned on my phone flashlight. The beam revealed familiar shapes. Christopher's black BMW, tool racks along the walls, some boxes in the corner. "What exactly are we looking for?" I whispered, sweeping the light around. "Anything unusual?" Victoria pulled out her phone too, something that shouldn't be in a normal garage. We started examining the space. Everything seemed familiar. I'd been here a few times when Christopher changed my oil or helped with minor repairs. A typical successful guy's garage, expensive tools, parts, shelves of car care products. "Look," Victoria pointed to the far corner. "Why is there fresh plaster here?" I aimed the light. Sure enough, a large patch on one wall looked lighter, like a recent repair. "Maybe there was a crack," I suggested, but a bad feeling clenched inside. Victoria moved closer, running her hand over the wall. "There's something here. Feel it? Like a hollow behind the wall." I touched the plaster too. The concrete felt warm, strange for nighttime, and tapping it produced a dull sound, definitely hollow. "Need to find how it opens." Victoria started tapping the wall nearby. "There's always a lever or button in the movies." "Vic, this isn't a movie." I gave a nervous laugh, but started examining the wall too. After 10 minutes of scrutinizing every inch, I accidentally brushed against a protrusion on a nearby shelf. A soft click, and a section of the wall shifted almost imperceptibly. "Holy shit," Victoria breathed. "It's a real hidden door." We exchanged glances. In the flashlight beams, our faces looked like pale masks. "Maybe it's just a storage closet," I suggested, but my voice betrayed a tremble. "Let's check." Victoria was already heading for the gap. "You want to know, don't you?" Yes, I wanted to know, and was terrified to find out. Something told me my life wouldn't be the same afterward. The hidden door opened surprisingly easily. Behind it was a small room about 10 by 12 feet. When we shone our lights inside, nausea rose in my throat. The walls were covered, floor to ceiling, with photographs, hundreds, maybe thousands, and in every single one, me. Me at the office, me leaving my apartment building, me in a cafe with friends, me grocery shopping, me walking alone in the park, with friends, with my parents. Some photos were taken from a distance, some close up. Some were dated 5 years earlier, long before I met Christopher. "My God!" Victoria whispered, staring at the walls. "He's been stalking you all this time." I couldn't answer. Horror choked me. One photo showed me in my graduation gown, 7 years ago. In the center of the room stood a small desk with a laptop and some folders. Mechanically, I walked closer and picked up the top folder. Inside were documents, copies of my bank statements, medical records, apartment lease, even my high school diploma. This is some nightmare, I muttered, flipping through the papers. How did he collect all this? Look, Victoria pointed to a stack of papers on the desk corner. Are those, wedding invitations? I picked up the top envelope, identical to the ones we'd mailed guests a week ago, but the text inside was different. Dear friends, you are cordially invited to a celebratory dinner honoring the engagement of Christopher and Emily. Please join us tomorrow at 7 p.m. at the Gilded Age restaurant. But we're already engaged, I said, bewildered, staring at the invitation. Why another engagement party? Look at the date, Victoria said quietly. I looked closer and felt the floor drop away. The date on the invitation was 5 years ago, 2 years before Christopher and I met. At that moment, a door slammed upstairs. Footsteps sounded. Someone was coming. Quick, turn off your light. Victoria yanked my arm, snapping me out of my stupor. We killed the lights, but in the darkness, the secret room felt even more terrifying. Hundreds of my photos glinted faintly in the dim light filtering from the main garage. Footsteps sounded above, growing closer. Maybe it's just the guard doing rounds, I whispered, desperately clinging to rational hope. Victoria shook her head. At this hour? And why are the steps heading straight for this floor? She was right. The footsteps weren't the measured pace of a routine patrol. Someone was descending purposefully to our level. We scrambled around the room looking for cover. The only option was the heavy desk against the wall. Crouching, we squeezed underneath, pressed together. I could feel Victoria's heart pounding wildly. Or was it mine? The footsteps reached the garage, the sound of a key in the lock, a click, a flashlight beam swept across the main space. Emily? Christopher's voice sounded unfamiliar, soft, almost tender, but with new, frightening undertones. I know you're here. Your car triggered the entrance cameras. I froze. My car. We'd taken a cab. Then I remembered the system automatically logged all authorized entries. My pass was linked to my vehicle. Come out, sweetheart, he continued. You shouldn't have come here now, but since you are. His footsteps approached the hidden room. The flashlight beam swept over the photo-covered walls. I suppose it's time we had a frank talk. His steps drew nearer to the secret entrance. The flashlight beam slid over the walls, illuminating the photos. Beautiful collection, isn't it? Dreamy notes entered his voice. I gathered it over many years. Know when I first saw you? In the park, near your university. You were sitting on a bench reading a book. Sunlight tangled in your hair, and you wrinkled your nose so adorably when something surprised you in the text. I clapped a hand over my mouth, stifling a scream. I remembered that day, 7 years ago. I was studying for finals and often worked in the park. I knew immediately you were special. Christopher walked closer to the desk, placing something on the surface above our heads. But everything had to be prepared perfectly, the ideal conditions for our meeting created. 2 years, I studied you. Learned your habits, your tastes, your dreams. It took considerable time and money to infiltrate the company where you worked. Then that silly Victoria came along with her corporate party idea. I felt Victoria flinch. Her career jump 3 years ago, the unexpected promotion to department head that allowed her to organize that party. All orchestrated. Know what's funniest? Christopher chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. You genuinely fell in love with me. I did everything right, became exactly the man you wanted beside you. Morning flowers. Of course, I knew you loved white roses, saw you buy them every spring for your mum, random notes. I studied your handwriting, found your old diaries. 3 years I was perfect, utterly perfect. He fell silent. Only his breathing and the muffled sound of rain outside filled the quiet. And tomorrow? His voice turned dreamy. Tomorrow was supposed to be a special evening. I planned it for 5 years. Everything was to be perfect. The restaurant where you celebrated your graduation. Your favorite champagne. The kind you only tasted once at a friend's birthday 4 years ago. Music from that movie you saw in the theater on a rainy Tuesday 6 years ago. Something metallic clinked on the desk. I felt Victoria squeeze my hand. But you came here early. Irritation crept into his voice. That damn fortune teller. Who knew she'd be the real thing? I checked her out. Ordinary charlatan, like many. She shouldn't have felt it. Shouldn't have warned you. Another metallic clink. Keys? Tools? Never mind. He seemed to reassure himself. No matter. Plans just need a slight adjustment. You're here, Emily. His voice took on a feverish pitch. I smell your scent. That same shampoo you've used for 4 years. Come out, sweetheart. Let's start our special evening right now. His footsteps approached the desk. The flashlight beam danced on the floor, nearing our hiding spot. I held my breath. My heart pounded so loudly it seemed to fill the room. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from above. Christopher froze. "Hey, who's there?" came the guard's voice. "Lights are on down on level 2. Christopher cursed under his breath. Damn idiot, always at the wrong time. Footsteps started retreating. The sound of a door opening and closing. Silence. "Quick," Victoria whispered, "before he comes back." We scrambled out from under the desk. In the dim light, I saw what Christopher had placed on the desktop, a long hunting knife. Beside it lay plastic zip ties and a roll of duct tape. "Oh God," Victoria exhaled. Was he going to? I grabbed the knife and ties. "Can't leave these here. We need proof." With trembling hands, I started taking pictures, the photo-covered walls, the documents on the desk, the invitation to the engagement that never happened. Victoria frantically stuffed papers from folders into her bag. "Gotta go." She pulled my arm. "He could come back any second." We bolted for the hidden room exit. I was almost done closing the secret panel when footsteps sounded above again. More this time. Someone was running down the stairs. "Over here!" shouted the guard's voice. "Saw movement on the cameras." "Stay here!" Christopher's voice barked. "I'll check myself." Footsteps approached. Fast. Confident. He knew exactly where he was going. Victoria and I locked eyes. Nowhere to retreat. No back exit in the garage, only the main door, behind which Christopher's heavy breathing was already audible. Time seemed to freeze. In the garage's gloom, I saw Victoria's hands trembling as they clutched her phone. I heard my own ragged breathing. Christopher's steps were slow, deliberate, like a predator cornering prey. The key turned in the lock. "Victoria's car," Victoria mouthed silently, pointing toward the black BMW. We managed to duck behind the hood just as the door swung open. A flashlight beam swept the garage, illuminating tool racks, boxes, old tires in the corner. "Emily!" Christopher's voice was almost tender again, but that tenderness made my skin crawl. "I know you're here. Let's not play hide and seek, okay? Come out." I gripped the knife I'd taken from the desk. The cold handle was slightly grounding. One wrong move and it would all be over. I needed to decide now. Time stretched like rubber. Each heartbeat thundered in my ears. I heard Christopher's footsteps. He was methodically circling the car, getting closer to my hiding spot. Victoria whimpered softly, pressed between the wall and a shelving unit. Muffled noise came from above. Someone was coming down the stairs, but too slowly. My gaze fell on the car key fob clipped to Christopher's belt. Suddenly, a switch flipped in my head. A plan formed instantly. Insane, risky, but our only chance. You know, I forced my voice to sound calm. You're right. Footsteps halted. What? You're right about love. I slowly rose from behind the car, hands visible. I discreetly slipped the knife into my jacket pocket. It really can be stronger than life or death. Christopher stood 3 paces away. The gun was pointed at my chest. In the weak emergency light, his face looked like a mask from a horror movie. Familiar features, yet subtly distorted. Wrong. I always knew you'd understand. He smiled, a sight more terrifying than any scowl. You're special, that's why I chose you. Tell me. I took a small step forward. Tell me how it happened. When did you realize I was the one? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Victoria slowly straighten up, confused. Just don't do anything stupid, just understand. It was beautiful, Christopher drawled dreamily, the gun lowering slightly. That day in the park, you sat on a bench reading some book. The wind played with your hair. The sun created this special halo around you. I was taking photos for some stupid magazine piece on student life, and suddenly there you were in the viewfinder. Another half step forward. I was close enough now to see beads of sweat on his forehead, the feverish glint in his eyes. Took to Dushtora Charm. Does it all? Shots that day. And that evening, developing the film, I understood. All the other photos were empty, only the ones with you. Life had meaning. It was like an epiphany, like I'd lived in a black and white world, until you brought color. And you started following me. My voice trembled, not with fear, but with revulsion I didn't try to hide. Following? He laughed. No, sweetheart. I started studying you, learning you, absorbing every detail of your life. It was like reading the most beautiful book, page by page. Loud voices echoed from above, sounded like the police had finally reached our floor. Christopher jerked. The gun came up again. No time, he muttered. No time at all. Have to act fast. There's still time. I took the final step, bringing us almost face to face. Now, the crucial thing was, he didn't notice my hand slowly sliding into my jacket pocket. Tell me about the parents. Why didn't they fly in? His eyes lit up. Ooh, that was tricky. Had to hack their email, forge letters from the airline about flight cancellations. But worth it. Tomorrow had to be perfect, just you and me, no extra people. I'd take you to the restaurant, we'd dine by candlelight, and then… His voice dropped to a whisper. And then what? I almost whispered back, staring into his eyes, my hand in my pocket closed around the knife's handle. What was supposed to happen then, Christopher? He leaned in, his lips almost brushing my ear. Then we'd drive far, far away, where no one would find us, just you and me, forever. I prepared documents, new passports, thought of every detail. At that moment, the garage door shuddered under a blow from outside. Christopher whipped around toward the sound, and I knew this was my chance. In one fluid motion, I yanked the knife from my pocket and simultaneously grabbed the key fob from his belt. The shriek of the car alarm split the air, making Christopher instinctively flinch. I jumped back, still clutching the knife. Victoria screamed and hurled a heavy metal oil can at Christopher. He staggered. The gun jerked in his hand. Bang! Something hot seared my shoulder. No pain yet, just a strange numbness and the warmth of blood spreading down my sleeve. Emily! Victoria shrieked. No! It was a howl from Christopher. No, no, no! I didn't mean to. Not like this. He lunged toward me, lowering the gun. It was his fatal mistake. The garage door finally gave way. People in police uniforms poured in. The beam of a tactical flashlight blinded us momentarily. Everyone freeze! Police! He's got a gun! Victoria yelled. Christopher jerked, raising the weapon, but it was too late. 2 officers tackled him to the ground, disarming him. He didn't resist, just stared at me with desperate insanity. Ruined it, he mumbled. The whole plan was supposed to be perfect. Someone sat me on the floor. Someone pressed something soft to my shoulder. Voices blurred into an indistinct hum. I saw the police cuffing Christopher, saw someone photographing the walls of the secret room, saw medics bending over me. "Em!" Victoria knelt beside me, her face wet with tears. "I'm so sorry. Sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I should have." I shook my head. Later. Everything later. Through the haze of shock and exhaustion, I watched as Christopher was led away. In the glare of police lights, his face looked like a wax mask, the handsome, perfect face of the man I'd loved for 3 years, the man who never existed. "I love you," he shouted, turning at the door. "You'll still be mine. We're meant for each other." "No," I said quietly. But in the sudden silence, the word rang out clearly. "You didn't love me. You loved an image you created, a fantasy, an obsession, but that wasn't me, never was." He was led out. Crime scene techs started working, gathering evidence, photographing, bagging documents. Medics tended to my wound. The bullet had only grazed my shoulder, but it needed stitches. I sat slumped against a wall, staring at the photos, still hanging in the secret room. Hundreds of images, hundreds of moments of my life, stolen by a man who called it love. Every smile, every gesture, every instant part of his obsession. But it was over now. The nightmare that began 7 years ago in a park near my university had finally ended. I looked at my hands. They weren't shaking anymore. The next few hours blurred into a strange kaleidoscope. The hospital where they stitched my shoulder, the police station where I gave a statement, endless questions from detectives, reports, signatures. It all happened as if in a fog, like I was watching from outside. Dawn found me in the office of Detective Anna Morgan, a young woman with tired eyes and neat handwriting. She methodically recorded my every word, pausing occasionally to clarify details. "So, you say you never noticed anything strange about him?" she asked, looking up intently. "Not in 3 years?" I gave a bitter laugh. "That's just it. He was perfect, utterly perfect. Now I realize that should have been the warning sign." Detective Morgan made a note. "Explain. What do you mean by perfect?" I closed my eyes, remembering. He always knew what I wanted, what flowers I liked, what music I preferred, what wine I'd choose in a restaurant. I thought he was just incredibly attentive, but he just studied me, like a lab rat. Every habit, every movement. A police officer peeked in with a folder. "Detective Morgan, forensics finished with the garage. You won't believe what they found." The detective took the folder, quickly scanned it. "Jesus!" She looked at me. "I need to show you something. It might be unpleasant, but—" "Show me." I nodded wearily. "Doubt anything can be worse than what I've already seen." She spread photos on the desk, blueprints of some structure, lists of equipment, invoices for construction materials. "These are documents for a bunker," she said quietly. "He was building it in the suburbs on a derelict plot. Soundproofing, independent power supply, 6 months of food stockpiled." She placed the final photo, the worst one, a schedule for administering powerful tranquilizers. Beside it, a detailed plan for transporting me there and adapting me to my new life. "He planned everything," Detective Morgan's voice was grim. "After the engagement dinner, he intended to stage your kidnapping, then keep you in that bunker, possibly for years." Nausea rose in me. The events of the past night took on a new, even more horrifying meaning. And this we found in his home safe. Anna handed me another folder. Inside were documents under different names, my photos with altered details, 3 sets of passports, foreign visas, bank cards. He prepared several contingency plans, the detective explained. If the bunker plan failed, he planned to take you abroad. Tickets bought for different dates, hotels booked. He thought of everything. There was a tentative knock at the door. Victoria stood there, pale, with dark circles under her eyes, but changed into clean clothes. "May I? I brought Emily some things, and we need to talk." Detective Morgan nodded. 5 minutes. Then we need to clarify a few more things. We stepped into the hallway. Victoria handed me a bag of clothes, but I didn't take it immediately. An awkward pause hung between us. "Did you really work for him?" I finally asked. She nodded, avoiding my eyes. "At first, yes. He offered insane money just to keep an eye on you, report on your plans, help set up chance meetings." Victoria sniffled. I was an idiot, thought he was just a rich, lovesick guy, too shy to approach you himself. But then, she finally met my gaze, tears welling. Then we actually became friends. I saw who you really are, kind, genuine, loyal, and I got scared. I started noticing his weirdness, the obsession in his eyes. But it was too late. He hinted that if I tried to warn you, I'd be in big trouble. Me and my family. I leaned against the wall, feeling dizzy. "Why didn't you go to the police?" "He showed me documents." Victoria lowered her voice to a whisper. "Proof I took his money, helped him stalk you. I'd go down with him, and my mum's sick, my little brother." Her voice held such despair that some of my anger receded. Not forgiveness, not yet, but at least understanding. "And yesterday? Why take me to the fortune teller?" Victoria gave a humorless laugh. "It was my last-ditch effort. I knew he was planning something terrible for the engagement dinner, heard snippets of calls, saw him meeting shady people. I spent a week trying to warn you without him knowing. Then I heard about this fortune teller. She's legit, even helps with investigations sometimes. But Christopher said he'd checked her out." "He lied?" "Totally. He had no clue about my plan. I booked the appointment myself, came up with the gift idea, and she somehow sensed the danger." "Now I understand," I said slowly. "It was the only way to reach me, make me check the garage before—" I didn't need to finish. "Before it was too late," Victoria finished for me. Detective Morgan appeared in the hallway. "Emily, we need to finish your statement. And there are reporters at the entrance. The story broke. How do you want to handle it?" I rubbed my eyes tiredly. "Options? We can get you out the back, or arrange a brief press statement. Sometimes that helps stop rumors and speculation." I thought about it. Images flashed. The horrific photos, the bunker documents, the fake passports. The man I loved was a monster, an obsessed stalker planning to destroy my life. But I wasn't his victim anymore. I'd survived. I'd fought. And now I had the right to tell my story. "All right," I squared my shoulders, wincing at the sharp pain. "I'll make a statement. Maybe it will help other girls not fall into the same trap." Victoria tentatively touched my arm. "I'll go with you if you want." I looked at her, my former best friend, betrayer, and ultimately the one who helped save me. Maybe someday I could forgive her, but not today. "No." I shook my head. "This I need to do alone." She nodded, understanding. At that moment, another officer entered. "Detective Morgan, forensics finished with the suspect's computer. You need to see this." What they found on Christopher's computer surpassed our worst fears. Dozens of meticulously dated folders contained not only photos but detailed diary entries. He recorded my every step, every action, every conversation. Special software analyzed my social media posts, tracked my geolocation, compiled data from my bank card purchases. It's like some kind of social experiment, the forensic psychologist murmured, scanning files. He studied you like a scientist studies a specimen, charted your mood swings, analyzed your reactions to stimuli. I watched over her shoulder, feeling a strange numbness. One folder contained a document titled Adaptation Protocol, detailed instructions on conditioning me for bunker life, broken down by day, week, month. Day 17, subject will be disoriented and frightened. Maintain calm environment, play soothing music, playlist her top 3 relaxation tunes, tranquilizer dosage per schedule, **. Day 814, begin positive reinforcement program, reward for displays of obedience, list of preferred sweets in Appendix 2, continue medication per schedule, **. He even listed my favorite candies. I felt hysterical laughter bubbling up. From childhood. How did he know? Likely social media, the psychologist replied. Here are archived copies of all your posts going back to school days, even deleted ones. Detective Morgan entered with another folder. We found his real apartment, the one he supposedly lived in. A stage set, specially rented and furnished for meetings with you, the real place, .. She hesitated. What was there? I wasn't sure I wanted to know. A whole room of monitors. He installed surveillance cameras around your home, office, favorite cafes. Anna opened the folder. And this. The photos showed a room whose walls were plastered, floor to ceiling, with printouts of my photos, notes, receipts. Red threads connected them in a bizarre web. One wall held a huge city map marked with dots, places I frequented. He tracked all your movements, Detective Morgan continued, made schedules, calculated probabilities of you appearing in specific places. This is professional stalking on another level. And this? I pointed to a strange object in a corner photo. Anna pressed her lips together. A mannequin, with a wig made of real hair, your hair. He collected it from the salon where you got your hair done. The room seemed to spin. Detective Morgan quickly pushed a chair toward me. Sit down, want some water? I want to wake up. I tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. All of this, it feels like a sick dream. 3 years of my life. 3 years I lived with a monster and didn't see it. You can't blame yourself, the psychologist said gently. He was exceptionally intelligent and methodical, created the perfect illusion of a normal relationship built on exhaustive study of your personality. It's called social mimicry, when someone completely molds themselves to the victim's desires. A police officer peeked in. Excuse me, but the press needs a comment. The story's everywhere. I stood up, straightened my shoulders. Okay, let's get this over with. In the hallway, Victoria caught up to me. Wait, I need to tell you something about the fortune teller. I stopped. What? I lied. She looked down. I didn't just find her. I went to her a month ago when I noticed Christopher acting strange. She sensed something immediately, asked about you. I told her everything I knew. She agreed to help. Said she could warn you in a way you'd believe. You mean? I slowly processed it. She knew. From the start? Yes, Victoria nodded, but she said you had to see it for yourself, that words alone wouldn't be enough. You trusted him too much. You needed to find the proof yourself. I remembered the fortune teller's piercing gaze, her strange words about the garage. She had known and found a way to reach me when other avenues were dangerous. Before the door to the press conference room, I paused. A buzz of voices came from within. Journalists waited for the sensational story of the bride who uncovered her fiancé's stalking secret. "What will you tell them?" Victoria asked quietly. I took a deep breath. "The truth. About how easily obsession can be mistaken for love, about the importance of heeding warning signs, no matter how small, and about how sometimes you should listen to strange warnings from strangers." The doors opened. Camera flashes momentarily blinded me. Dozens of microphones thrust forward. Voices merged into a clamor of questions. I stepped toward the podium. My shoulder still ached, but the pain felt insignificant compared to the hollowness inside. 3 years had been an expertly crafted illusion, but it was also a lesson, harsh, terrifying, but necessary. Behind me, Detective Morgan quietly gave orders. This case would become one of the biggest of her career. Me? I just wanted to tell my story so others would know love shouldn't be frightening, that real feelings don't require total control, and that sometimes the most terrifying monsters hide behind the mask of a perfect prince. The room fell silent. They waited. Journalists, police, Victoria. I looked into the cameras and began. "My name is Emily, and I need to tell you a story." My voice, amplified by the microphone, sounded unexpectedly steady. A story about how easily obsession can be mistaken for love, about how someone can wear a mask for years, hiding a monster beneath, and about how crucial it is to heed warnings, even when they seem absurd. I told them about meeting Christopher, the 3 seemingly perfect years, the engagement, the approaching wedding. He was flawless, I said with a bitter smile. Now I realize that flawlessness should have been the warning. No one is that perfect by accident. He knew my desires, anticipated my dreams, because he'd studied me for years like a specimen. I described the garage, the hidden room of photos, the bunker plans, the fake passports. I explained how Victoria, manipulated at first, became instrumental in my escape, and how the fortune teller, Evelyn Carter, a retired criminal psychologist, intervened with her uncanny warning. Journalists fired questions. How did you escape? How did you feel learning the truth? Were there signs earlier? I raised a hand for quiet. The most terrifying part? There were signs. Looking back, I see them all. His excessive knowledge of my life, the chance encounters that felt too natural, his knack for always being nearby when I needed him. That wasn't coincidence. It was calculation, cold, methodical calculation by someone who'd spent years setting a trap. Detective Morgan appeared beside me. She nodded, signaling it was time to wrap up. "I'm not telling this for sensationalism." My voice wavered for the first time. "I want other women to know, sometimes what looks like perfect love hides an obsession. Sometimes the prince on a white horse is a monster in disguise, and sometimes you should listen to a strange warning from an unfamiliar face." After the press conference, Detective Morgan took me to her office. My parents were there, pale, distraught, having flown in on the first flight after hearing the news. "Sweetheart," Mum rushed to hug me so tightly my wounded shoulder protested. "How could this happen?" "We knew him. He visited our home." "Mum," I sank wearily into a chair. "You thought you knew him. He was a master pretender." Dad stood by the window, his shoulders tense. What now? With the investigation, the trial? Anna sat on the edge of her desk. "We have more than enough evidence. Besides what we found in the garage and his apartment, there's something else." She paused. "We discovered this wasn't his first time." I jerked my head up. "What?" "Under a different name, 5 years ago, in another city." Detective Morgan opened a file. "Same pattern. prolonged stalking, information gathering, creating perfect conditions to meet. Only that girl vanished a week before her wedding. The case was never solved. Nausea washed over me, somewhere out there, possibly in a bunker like the one meant for me. We've started searching, Anna added quickly, seeing my expression. We have leads, and now that we know his methods… There was a knock. A young officer appeared. Detective Morgan. There's a visitor. Says it's important. An older woman with piercing eyes entered the room. I recognized her instantly. The fortune teller. Hello, Emily. She gave a faint smile. Forgive me for not warning you more directly, but you needed to find the truth yourself. You? Detective Morgan stood up. The fortune teller. Alma Brown. The woman handed over a passport. Retired criminal psychologist. 20 years with the investigative committee, specialized in serial offenders fixated on specific victims. After retiring, I went into private practice. She met my stunned gaze. I use my experience and intuition to help people, sometimes in unconventional ways. So you're not a fortune teller? That depends on your definition of fortune telling. She smiled enigmatically. I read people, their gestures, expressions, speech patterns. When Victoria came to me with stories about your fiancé, I recognized the signature immediately. I had a similar case 15 years ago. Anna quickly scanned files on her computer. The Sergei Mikhailov case, 2 years of stalking, abduction of a bride 1 week before the wedding. Exactly, Alma nodded. That case ended tragically. I vowed never to let it happen again, so when I saw the pattern repeating… You intervened, Detective Morgan finished. But why that way? Why not go straight to the police? Men like him have connections everywhere. The former psychologist shook her head, and Emily needed to realize for herself who she was with. A simple warning from a stranger wouldn't have sufficed. She needed a nudge to start noticing the discrepancies. I remembered how her words about the garage had haunted me, triggering the chain of doubt. I have a proposal, Detective Morgan turned to Alma. We'll need your expertise, especially in finding that first girl. Of course, Alma agreed. I've already prepared a preliminary psychological profile, and I have some ideas about where to look. Watching these two women, the young detective and the seasoned psychologist, discuss the investigation, I felt some of the tension of the past hours slowly release. The nightmare wasn't over, but I wasn't alone anymore. Mom touched my hand gently. Let's go home, sweetheart. You need rest. I shook my head. Not yet, Mom. First, I have something to do. Rummaging in my bag, I found Alma's number. Alma, my voice was quiet but firm. I want to help with the investigation with finding that girl. I know him better than anyone. I know how he thinks, how he plans. Maybe that knowledge can help. She looked at me intently, then gave a slight smile. I was hoping you'd offer. She turned to Detective Morgan. Anna, I think we need another desk in the operations room. Outside the window, the dawn of a new day was breaking, a day that could have been my engagement day, but instead marked the start of something else, a path to healing, to justice, to a new life, and I was ready to walk it.